I'm Annie.
And I'm Leah.
And this is Lactation Business Coaching with Annie and Leah, where we talk about the smart way to create a compassionate and professional private practice.
Let's dive in.
Well, hey there, Leah.
Hey, Annie. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm really interested in our topic today because I actually don't know a lot about how I feel about this or even what I think about it. And so I'm excited to process with you how to combine virtual visits and in-person care.
Yes, I think this is going to be a great topic today because we're really going to be able to brainstorm like how this could be beneficial during the current pandemic and ways we can utilize these different platforms we've learned and been using, and how we can start incorporating, or those who are incorporating in-person care, like how we can work all together with both areas. So I was really thinking, like, what ways could it be helpful to combine this? And I think the first thing that came to mind was just reducing the time that we're in person with people was kind of like the first, why would you even think of doing combo visits? And I think that's so important right now. We're all trying to keep our families that we're trying to work with safe. And it definitely gives us another option for doing that. Was there any things that you were thinking, like, what would combo care be helpful for?
I mean, I think specifically for me, living in such an expensive place, I've always wanted an office, and I've always dreamed of, like, that's where I would do prenatals, and that's where I would do back to work consults, and I could do pump fittings there. And I can't afford an office. It's just too expensive. And then, and then I get into with, doing home visits. It's like, I really don't want to drive for 45 minutes and have to look for parking to do a 30-minute prenatal. And that can be really hard. It's like that 30-minute prenatal takes up the same amount of space in my consult day as a 2-hour home visit at the end of the day. Like I can't do more visits because I'm still driving around. They still take all this time. And so I really am like, would never have thought before to offer a client, well, let's just do a follow-up virtually, because that's not something that anybody was really thinking about that you would do with somebody who is in your geographic area.
Right.
I never did
it wasn't really even on our radar. Yeah, I really think so. Especially for people that were close by. We might have thought, like, yeah, if I'm, helping somebody across the country maybe, but if it's close by, it just seems like that was always the smart, sensible thing to do. But now the smart, sensible thing to do, and certainly can really help us with time management and the economic impact, is to be able to combine some of these virtual visits. I always also was thinking how doing some combinations could really help with access of care. We both carry a busy client load, which if you have to add in driving, that's a lot less time that I'm available. And, for these one-off visits, like you said, it can be hard to I really need to check in with you in, 3 days, but oh my gosh, I'm already booked out. It makes it so much more challenging. But when we have combinations where sometimes we're in person and sometimes we're virtually, you could really set it up so that you could have more easy access to getting those check-ins, getting more follow-ups. I know for sure I have had a gabillion more follow-ups being virtual, and have really, really liked getting to have a closer kind of connection to the progress and everything. That's been so neat. And I think my families are really enjoying that as well. I know you're utilizing that a ton in your practice. You've talked about that before.
I've definitely seen that. It feels like easier to just do we're just going to check in. And it can be at this time. They're easier to reschedule, move around. Mm-hmm. I'm able to do, when in these really acute circumstances, say, okay, I saw you Friday. We're going to do another virtual on Tuesday. And then we're going to do another virtual on Friday. And all of a sudden I've seen somebody 3 times in a week instead of saying like, okay, I can come back. I'll be in your area next week. And then feeling stressed if that time doesn't work. And then I'm like, okay, like, but I'm going to be on the other side of town, and how am I going to get there? And what if I'm late? And just, all of those things. And I really love that we're seeing the use of virtual visits for these local purposes. There are lactation consultants who have been doing virtual visits for a very long time, and hats off to them for being pioneers. And these are people that were offering skills and services that were either, super specialized, where they're offering something that they really might be the only person who does that, or one of a handful of people who do that. And they're also meeting the needs of families who are living in areas where there is not an IBCLC who is geographically available to see them. That is a real need. And, just thank you to those people for seeing that need and stepping up to fill it. And I also really like that I don't have to have that excuse to do virtual visits, because I could just be like, I'm just a normal lactation consultant who lives in New York City. I know all of the local referrals. I have been on your street corner, even if I'm not there right now. I know where you live, and that we can have that connection even virtually. I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that this combining both virtual and in-person care could come with, multiple variations, not just one way to do that. I was kind of brainstorming about this and was thinking, well, you could do a virtual on the front end, kind of get that intake process out of the way and all, going through all the history, and maybe even looking at a couple of the issues and having them start on some things, and then, really identifying the critical, maybe more hands-on pieces that you needed to do, and scheduling that for the time in person, which I really feel like you could shrink that down, from 2 hours to like 30 minutes if it was just, oral assessment or, something like that was really in person, or weight check.
And that model makes a lot of sense. You're basically using the virtual visits as triage and management. And then there is a hands-on component, but it's really a targeted intervention. So where the hands-on piece is actually like, this is the special thing we're doing. We have to do this one thing. We're going to be in and out, but the bulk of our care is going to be done virtually. And then the flip side would be where you are establishing care with the family in person, whether it's in home or in the office, but then follow-ups are happening virtually. So where you're saying, okay, I've had my eyes and my hands on this situation. You and I have established an in-person connection, but now what I'm doing is I'm there to help you meet your goals. And we're just going to be checking in on how's it going towards your goals. And I guess within that, there would be room for, let's do an in-person check-in, but you're really establishing that like, we're not really doing in-person for follow-up. And I think in both models, it's like we're kind of imagining that the in-person piece is comprising a pretty small portion of the care, and that most of it is going to be delivered virtually.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's, a really neat hybrid, because I can think of many ways that parents are going to feel more secure about the work that they're going to do with you. Because it's like, you kind of go into it knowing this isn't a one and done. Like, I've got this person that's like committed to see me, at least 2 times in 2 different ways. I just feel like the parents feel more secure about what they're going to get out of it. But it does come, then to start thinking about, well, are you going to have some change in your pricing structure? Because you got to present to the family, like, this is basically going to be, I'm going to see you 2 times. One's going to be in person, one's going to be virtual. And what were your thoughts about that? Like, as far as, making it a package deal, or just setting it up from the get-go, like, this is my cost for this, and this is my cost for this, and you're going to have to pay for both of them? Or I don't know, what were your thoughts on that? Because this is an area I know you think through well, like the financing, and then we've got to think about all the like super bills, the
insurance,
and all the kind of fun components of it. What were your thoughts as you kind of were thinking through this?
Well, I think that we're going to have to move away from the whole, like, this is this huge amount of money. I'm going to come in and I'm going to be at your house for a really long time. And then I'm going to provide follow-up care by, email or text or phone or whatever it is that you're doing. So this is that's the traditional in-person model is this comprehensive initial visit, which, I've done those for years, and we do them because they're good. They work. And, people are, they understand what that model is. And now here we're going to be saying, it is going to be some kind of combo. There is a package element. And I think when you're coming up with your pricing, what you want to think about is how much do you want to emphasize that this is more than one visit? Like, are you offering, I have virtual visits and this is what they are. And if you want me to come in person, I'm going to charge you this. Right. Or are you saying, like, I like how you put it, this is one visit in 2 stages. And, coming up with that pricing to say, okay, how much time am I going to be spending on the in-person? How much time am I going to be spending on the virtual? What does that add up together? You'll split it up for the super bill because it's going to be 2 different dates of service.
Right.
But really thinking about breaking down your pricing in a more granular way. It might mean going to an hourly model, a time-based model, and not a what's included model.
Per service model. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good way to think through it, because I think, the end goal is to try to parse down the time that we're spending in person. I think that's what a lot of the goal of combining a virtual and in-person care model would be. Because we're coming up with this during a pandemic. We're thinking, I think maybe later when the pandemic is over, that's what I keep thinking. When the pandemic is over, we might be utilizing it because it does really help with getting the follow-ups in and scheduling stuff. There are some really big advantages, but right now we're thinking safety and really trying to promote, the best, safest care that we can give. And I think it's so important that we consider the timing aspect, because in the end, that's kind of the end goal. So that's a really good perspective to think through your pricing and how you might be shifting it during this time. And it does seem to go along with insurance codings, which are, a lot of them have the time-based aspect. So that's helpful as well.
I think another way to look at the time too is, so you've got the time for the visit, but also what kind of time frame do you think is ideal for a client relationship? So thinking about when you've had those clients where things went really well, how much time did that relationship span of active clinical management?
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about packages that take that into consideration and saying, okay, I'm going to offer a latch support package. I think I have, the idea being, we're going to see you 3 times over 5 weeks virtually. And maybe it's 3 virtuals and 1 in-person check. And you're going to schedule them within this amount of time. And because from your experience, you're yeah, it's we need some space for them to work things out, but I don't want too much time to go by. And then actually using that to frame it to your families to say, this is what it looks like. This isn't a one and done thing. I'm not here to wave my magic wand. I'm not here, as we said in our How to Become an IBCLC episode, I'm not here to come in and latch your baby.
Right.
We're making a commitment to work together. I'm here to support your goals, and I'm not expecting anything to change right this second. It's going to take time.
Yeah, that's definitely a good consideration. And I think, because we're in this new area, we've got to be thinking outside of the box on marketing and how, we're not going to be able to go and keep with our old marketing strategies, because that's not what is appealing to people anymore. Hey, I'll come hang at your house for a really long time is maybe not high on everybody's list of how they want to interact, but they don't want to miss out on the support. And I think that's such an important way to be thinking through how you might establish the wording and the marketing around this combo of care. And I think the last thing that you would need to be thinking through is just the scheduling aspects of it, because it is a little challenging knowing that sometimes you're going to need to be in your your virtual office space. And then sometimes you're going to need to be in your clinical office space, or if you're doing in-person care in the family's homes. And so, I don't know, I was kind of like trying to brainstorm different ways that you might do this. Did you have any thoughts that came to your mind right away as you were kind of like picturing how this might work scheduling wise?
Yeah. I mean, and this might say more about my own personality than anything, but I like to be in a zone and stay in a zone.
Yeah.
I don't do well when I'm blending my day, where I'm like,
Bopping
okay, in the morning
around,
I'm virtual, in the afternoon I'm in person. So I, like psychologically, because of the effort of managing home visits, I just want to have a day where I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And I'm prepped. I've got what I need. I've got all my supplies. I'm not, mixing with my own family until I'm done. It's just carved out as a bubble. Because I find the virtual visits, I mean, I'm fitting them into family life. I mean, both of my kids are doing virtual school, and I'm like, okay, when are you in your class? Okay, that's when I'm making an appointment available for, and sometimes that's easier. And so if I have to leave the house and make all the effort to leave the house, I want to just really make the most of that day.
Yes.
And it's very similar to like the thought process of like scheduling home visits and how that workday goes. I mean, I think if you have an office, it definitely makes sense to have an office day. But like the thing is, you could like be in your office and do virtuals from the office.
Right.
But, having like one day, because then you're like going and you're cleaning and you're in that headspace of like, I have to be super vigilant. And then you can have a home day where you're like, your own home day where you're like, I'm just doing virtuals and like, I don't have to
take it down a notch.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I could just like be dirty, it's fine.
Yeah. I know it is a lot to think about. And then I know some people, as they're going through this, pandemic, have, been trying to do like one in-person family a day to kind of think through like, all the cleaning and everything, doing it back to back, like is a lot for some people, that might not do the in the zone Annie style. It might be like, I can do it once, but that's it, and they might need a break. So that's another thing, could have like mornings are your virtual time. And then, every afternoon you have like one or two, that you're seeing in person is another way to think about it. And I know, with the, like all the cleaning and the extra vigilance that it takes, that might appeal as well. So there's definitely some scheduling things to think of. And I think having like a plan ahead of time, like a schedule, like a plan for your packages, like how are you going to systematically schedule this? Like you're going to always do the virtual, and then like 2 days later they need the in person, or like it's always going to be 3 days later, is it going to be the next day, like that kind of thing. You'd really have to be thinking through that, I think, ahead of time, so that scheduling just flows a bit more easily and you kind of can get your week booked out. I know that always helps my brain as if like I know what the week ahead of looks like, if
Totally.
It's going to be a super crazy week or not so crazy week. I definitely like to have that like in my head starting out. So there's a lot to think of, but I'm so excited that now we're kind of opening, brainstorming about these different options, because I think there'll be ways that we can really serve the families who need our support, and helping us think outside the box about creative ways that we can make that really beneficial to them as well.
Definitely. I mean, this is a great conversation. It's one that I think is really evolving, and you're more experienced with the in-person than I am on the other side of this. It's been a lot harder for me to get to people in person, and I miss it. And I think seeing the opportunity, to really push yourself to find what works for you, so those of you that are doing in-person consults, thank you for doing them. Thank you for being safe. Thank you for working so hard. And for those of you that are not yet doing in-person care because of whatever excellent reason you have for it, thank you for honoring where you're at, because there are no right answers. There's no one thing that you have to be doing. Just be flexible and remember that at the end of the day, it's about helping families meet their goals. And we are equipped to do that with whatever way we can.
Absolutely. Well put for sure. Well, it's been really great talking to you today, Annie. And
Always.
I'm excited for all that we have in store over the next couple of months. And I hope that all you listeners will join us on our Patreon community and in our deeper dives, which is a great opportunity to dive deeper into topics that really impact our businesses and allow us to get in with some experts who can bring new insights and tools and strategies that are going to keep your business thriving even during a pandemic.
I love it. Well, as always, thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. And thank you for your support if you're a member of our Patreon community and for helping us pay the bills to keep this podcast always on and always in your earbuds.
Yes. Talk to you soon, Annie.
Bye.
Bye. Want to continue the conversation? Join our community and connect with other private practice lactation consultants just like you. We offer support and exclusive member-only content designed to help you create a compassionate and professional private practice. We're all in this together at patreon.com/lactation business coaching. And if you enjoyed today's episode, leave us a review and share it with a friend. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.